Thank you, Sohail. Thank you, participants. And we are now moving to Africa. Fortunately, I'm told we just... No break, no. We just have 35 minutes as we have to clear the room at 20 to 5. So it's my pleasure to call upon Omar Gouda, Tarig Osman, Omar Sheikh, and Adel Mounir to come, please, to the floor. And Africa, the most exciting topic, a challenging environment. We have the wealth we know of natural resources is the next big area of development for Islamic finance and for halal industry. We have a very large Muslim communities spread across the continent. We have language divide. We have social divide. We have a growing middle class, but at the same time, we have 5,000 to 8,000 refugees coming to Sicily each and every day nowadays. As we know, it's the major policy issue in the EU, all coming from sub-Saharan countries through Libya. So it's a very challenging environment with a lot of opportunities, of course. I would propose, in the interest of time, to start, and of course Africa is the continent where all started, Takaful started, and I propose to start with two presentations, one from Sudan and the other one from Kenya, and then perhaps opening up to Adel Mounir from FAIR to give us a wider perspective. And then last but not least, to Omar Gouda about challenging issues on Retakaful. We have about 10 minutes each, so we can keep to 8 minutes each. Then we have sometimes for presentations, for Q&A. Tarig?
If Omar can go first, I'll go after you.
I would prefer to start with Sudan, if you don't mind, because it all started in Sudan. And I've been myself to Khartoum a few times, and I saw the development of Islamic finance and agricultural products as well. So if you can share with the audience your thoughts about the Sudanese experience.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody. It's very late at the day. I'll try to make this as short as possible, 8 minutes. I come with a different perspective on the insurance side. I'm Tarig Osman, United Insurance. Our company is celebrating its 50th year of insurance next year, inshallah. 25 years of Takaful insurance. The example I'd like to bring about the Sudan model in specific, and the more I'm attending international conferences, etc., I find a lot of answers for the problems that we find in Takaful in the Sudan model. At first, to give a little bit of briefing, I'm a shareholder actually, and I don't come from an insurance background. I'm a businessman. And as managing director, I'm actually in charge of the investment side, which is where the shareholders' profits come from. And in the insurance side, I'd definitely like to give credit to Mr. Mohammed Abdin, who was able to build, my general manager, who was able to build the investment status that we have. Now, to reach this level, first of all, I'd like to say that it was not a smooth ride. It was... As a shareholder, I hated Islamic insurance. They came and told me one day that I just don't have any profits. I did not like it. I did not believe in it. And it took maybe my general manager another 10 to 12 years until he created a nice investment fund and gave me an investment fund to be happy with, that I was able to not look at the surplus of the insurance as the main interest. The conclusion of this is that it has accumulated in a system that works for all. A system that works for shareholders, for policyholders, and for the employees of the company. I think in any time you don't have the situation where the balance is between the three of these people, then you have a problem. If you have a company that's almost, Takaful is almost like a mutual. I like to say it's a mutual on steroids because it does have shareholders. It does have shareholders. But a mutual, a problem with it, it has no owner. Therefore, the profit and the KPIs become a problem at a certain point. We take zero money from our insurance services. We have zero. We've been distributing for the past 3 years over 50% of our surplus. That is held by the policyholders. Our customers decide how much money to distribute. Our policyholders have the right to choose a board member to be on our board. We have created 4 committees to double check the system, basically from an audit committee, from a compensation committee, an investment committee. Our policyholder representative is actually a key part of each of these groups. Now, just to give the growth on a natural level, 10 years ago, as a shareholder, the policyholder used to be elected. And as shareholders, we hijacked that seat, basically, and made sure that he's a shareholder. So there are ways where we developed this system. It was 3 or 4 years ago where, again, I give credit to Sayyid Muhammad, who told us, let's try, guys, and not give it to a shareholder. Let's try to bring a complete customer who has no relationship with the company to become a policyholder. And at that point, once we added a person who has no relations to being a shareholder, it created such a difference in our corporate governance. Our corporate governance was able to create more limits for the staff bonuses, for the packages. We were supposed to look at our investments on a better performance level. It gave focus to the company. I think we're at a trajectory right now. Past year, we were able to hold our first company retreat. We really looked at our mission, vision, objectives. I look at Takaful worldwide, and I think it is an answer to the world. Number one, I'll give it in a couple of things. It cannot be a Takaful product. It has to compete with conventional on same level, open field. Cannot sell it to anybody by it being an Islamic product. I don't think there's such a thing. I think God would be okay with us making a little bit less money on it. So the whole idea, it has to compete with conventional insurance on an even playing field. Sudan is a closed market. I think it's a completely Islamic system. I don't have the experience to say that we were able to do that in an open market, but our plans in the next 2-3 years are to expand. I wanted Omar to go first because he's actually one of my role models, and I read a lot about Takaful in Africa because they started something different in Kenya, and mashallah, it's very impressive on how they're doing it. So coming to these conferences, the Malaysians have a very highly advanced academic system and development of their corporate system. And to learn from all of these, I think we can come up with a better solution that works. I also think that this product is perfect for the West, and not only for the East or for Third. I don't think it has a religion color. It doesn't have a religion or a color to it. It's a product that should be better. Now, the number one thing, after 400 years of insurance, nobody really likes insurance people. That's number one until now. So I think we're at an area where the product is not serving the customer where he feels he's being served to the best of his ability. I think with Takaful, you have a different package. You have a package where the customer becomes involved in your surplus. If he's involved in your surplus and your distribution, he can punish you. He can take that, distribute it, he can get money back. The second thing is paying claims on time, etc., etc. I think these dynamics can change the fundamental foundation of Takaful in becoming a competitive, or the fundamental foundations of insurance worldwide. If I give another example, which I keep using, Apple is always, I'm an Apple person, Apple has $600 billion in reserves. I think capitalism, when you leave it open, the AIGs, the Lloyds of the world, I think when you have too much money, people find that resentful, especially when you deny my claim when you have that much reserve. In this way of Takaful, or let's say a customer having a right to intervene in the company's policies, I think it's, Takaful is a 21st century company. That's a new model for the world. I'm a Muslim, so I believe Islam always has the answer. It is just its adaptation. It can't be covered in Islam, and it can't be sold as an Islamic product. I personally believe in that. It's a better product at the end of the day. Halal food, at the end of the day, makes food better. It's good food. So at the end of the day, regardless of you're a Muslim, Hindu, it is an interesting product. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I've got a couple of questions, but I'll leave the question later on. And Omar, can you tell us about Kenya?
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. All roads lead to Africa, and more particularly Kenya, where there's serious financial inclusion and innovation. I was in insurance for about 1 year now. Before that, I was in banking for a very long time. Therefore, I'm a career banker, as opposed to insurance. But I find it's another way of spreading wings to, spread the value chain. What we discovered is that as I travel to many parts of the world, insurance is not very interesting. That's what I've noted. And the reason is that there are same traditional products all over the world. The same problem of price wars and lack of value proposition. It's actually a common problem. And probably that is one of the reasons why penetration of insurance is very low as compared to banking, which I'm very used to. And therefore, what we did in Kenya is that this problem has been nudging the professionals for a very long time. And Takaful Insurance Africa, being one of the very youngest, only 6 or 7 years old, took the lead in going to a new market, which has not been discovered by anybody. This is about livestock insurance. A very good number of the population, especially in the northern parts of the country, and more particularly Muslims and others who neighbor them, have their main economic stay as livestock. That's what they do. And normally from time to time, droughts come and ravage and finish all these animals. So what we decided to do is that we developed a certain product, very unique and very innovative, based on climate monitoring, scientifically driven, and we partnered with a very respected research firm in the country called ILRI, International Livestock Research Institute. And what they deliver for us is that they monitor the drought levels for us. And when it reaches a certain level, they raise the trigger. And once they trigger, we're there to compensate the people. Now, the uniqueness is that whereas insurance is normally known for asset replacement or compensation, this one is different. It's asset protection. In the sense that before the drought sets in, we are there, recruit people commercially, ensure the animals, the number of animals, and the like. And when the trigger is raised, all those that have paid their premiums are compensated, such that gives them the time and the chance to buy fodder for the animals, so that the animals are prevented from dying. That's why it's called protection. As we did this for the last 3 years, it caught the eyes of almost all the communities, and more particularly the government. So early this year, and late last year, there was very devastating drought in many parts of Africa, southern Sahara, all the way to Kenya, to Ethiopia. It was very bad drought, and animals were dying in large numbers. So before the drought set in, we had the trigger, and we compensated. We paid the people. So quite a number of animals were saved. And can I tell you that that has actually caught the attention of very many organizations. In May, we were called to receive an innovative award for an Africa organization or insurance, which was held in Kampala, and we received that one, which is now carrying in the business magazine based in Dubai, CBI, one of the papers. If you check, you will find that. Now, the happy thing is that after that, the government of Kenya was very much interested in the way we managed, and so they approached us. They have been doing this with some other insurance for a while. They have been giving them good premiums, as we could not qualify because we were young and all that. But as young as we were, the way we did it impressed the government so much. So they looked for us, they interviewed us, we demonstrated to them how we did it, how we monitor, and how we are timely. They discovered that the way our competitors were doing was wrong, because they were paying as late as 2 months ago when many animals have perished. But as we were there before them, we paid everybody and we washed our hands, and we went back, marketing for a new window. And therefore, we joined the interview, we applied, the procurement was done properly, and you know what? We won that one because the government was so impressed for 2 reasons. One, when they went down to the villages to find out how the people were feeling about this new product, they were told that you guys are driving the wrong product through our throat, that you are coming with conventional insurance to sell to Muslim communities. What we want is only the Takaful model, because we do not entertain a product which is non-compliant to insure animals, to cover our animals. And therefore, we do not want to invite the wrath of God. So I told them, we don't want this kind of insurance that they are bringing us around. That really impressed them. And this tells you that the Takaful model is very popular, and it can be very much received very well if only the knowledge gap is bridged between the insurers and the public. More importantly, they were very impressed in the way we have came in and paid quickly, and the way we monitored the weather, and the way how we were handy in paying claims when the red flag was raised. And therefore, they said, because of that timeliness, they say that we have actually won the contract. And guess what? It is 1.8 million pounds. For a small company to get that kind of money from a serious government like that one, it's not small meat. It's not small kind of work. And therefore, Takaful Insurance of Africa is now the winner of that contract. We signed it 2 weeks ago. And are waiting now to cover the rest of northern Kenya so that we can go in a big way. Apart from this, with my coming, with banking background, we started the products, and we realized that the insurance industry largely is behind, if you compare to the banks, very much behind in terms of market penetration, in terms of controls, process engineering, and even the level of understanding of the staff in terms of relationship and the like. So we introduced a lot of banking skills into insurance, relationship management, process engineering, process alignment, and so many things. The latest being changing the products from price-based, because that's normal. Price wars, people undercut each other very seriously. And now we're driving value-based propositions. What do a group of customers want? How do we develop products that are in line with their lifestyle and their behavior? And this is actually what we're rolling out. When I go back, the first thing I'll be doing, God willing, is to roll out 2 products successively, one after another, one for the women community, only for women, developed in line with their needs, and one for the high net worth customers, because there are certain things that they need. The banks will provide certain needs, and it stops somewhere. Then the insurance will fit other needs. So what we did is that we have created a bridge linking the insurance and the bank, such that there's a value chain across, there's a value chain across the whole transaction from A to Z, so that where the banks leave, we come and fill the void, and we connect the two. And therefore, I can see that there is a very big opportunity in insurance in Africa, and more particularly the East African region. It's a very virgin market, very virgin market. People are tired of insurance here. It has been here for 1,000 years. People are tired of banking here for 1,000 years. There it's a virgin. Every other day you'll find a new opportunity. There's a new class of people or population that require these products. It's only tweaking them and needing them. And there it is very easy to market. You can use various languages, various brochures, and various media of communication to win the hearts of the people. And therefore, Takaful, as young as it is across the world, what we can do is that we can tailor make products that are very relevant for various classes. Earlier today, we have been hearing that Far East Asia, like Malaysia, family covers works very well, and Saudi Arabia, general works very well. A country like Kenya, both of them work very well, but more particularly the general market is very fertile. And if only innovation, takes the lead, this is something that we can really go into in a great way. What I also discovered is that insurance across the world is actually a prisoner to, not a prisoner, but they depend a lot on intermediaries. Everything have got their own time, we discovered. Earlier today we've been hearing, and last week I've been hearing from the news that France developing electronic cars and the like. So the Middle East countries that have been relying on oil for a very long time, and nobody ever thought they'll come out of this. Now the income is being questioned, and the technology is giving them a lot of threat. It's posing threat. So it's time to diversify. So if you're used to sitting in the market for a very long time, you have to know that one day, someday, somewhere, something will come up to challenge you. So right now, the intermediaries, which is the main driver of insurance distribution, will come under a very big threat for 2 reasons. One, technology will make them irrelevant, because people will be writing, customers will be able to access their policies right from their offices. And number 2, relationship management is very key. However you develop technology, you can never do it with relationship management. I always want to contact with somebody to tell me more. That conversation is very important. That relationship is what we are trying to develop, and also important to insurance industry in Kenya, and more particularly Takaful. That is the model we're applying. Relationship management to reach the customer, because they need to be made to understand, to demystify, and to appreciate the products. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Omar, for a very detailed presentation. And now maybe moving up to a larger picture. Adel, can you give us a perspective across the continent, perhaps segmenting between the French-speaking area and the English-speaking area? It will be quite interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. I will try. My speech about opportunities for growth in Africa. But before, I would like to review some of the facts about demographic and economic facts about Africa. The first, Africa had a favorable demographic for Takaful, where demographic infers significant future demand in many African Takaful markets because of there is a large, young, educated, and underinsured population who are primarily Muslim, presenting 53% of populations are Muslim. Second, 6 countries, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, Nigeria, South Africa, account for 50% of Muslims in Africa and 60% of the content GDP. Fourth, there are 41 Takaful operators in Africa. Finally, the largest presence of Takaful in Africa in Sudan, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Senegal, and less in South Africa and Gambia. In a total, they're about less than $300 million for Takaful business. Opportunities for growth in Africa. First, Takaful depends on concepts of mutuality, joint help, and brotherhood, which fits well with African culture. If properly presented, it can be the best tool to deepen insurance penetration. Here, the concept is very important for Takaful. And lately, we heard about a friend insurance, a company in Germany, depend on a concept of a group of friends that participate or facing one risk, and they are dealing with a platform through a broker, and the broker dealing online with a company. And the experiment or that a new platform depend on a concept. And now there is about $50 million business in 1 year. Second, for opportunities, the inclusion of micro Takaful have the potential to deepen financial access and inclusion among lower income Africans. Also, third, for opportunities in growth, realization of oil and gas potentials in some African countries. That's give us also to review the growth rate. The growth rate for last 5 years, more than 20% annually for Takaful business in Africa. And this is because of the low insurance penetration. There is a young demographics, strong economic growth in some countries, increasing awareness of the need for protection. What's the factors that holding Takaful back? First, we return back to the concept. What holding Takaful now is differentiating the brand and the image. Several Takaful companies have been conducting their services and operation more like conventional insurance companies, creating confusion amongst customers. This also led to the second, which the lack of product innovation or the limited product differentiation. So we go back always to the concept of Takaful. The last thing I would like to share with you, it's something I read about it lately, what's called crowd Takaful. The same idea of crowdfunding and still theoretical. Crowd Takaful, what it can be a threat or an opportunity for Takaful. Instead of going to Takaful company, the participants, it's a a people, any people, go to crowd Takaful platform. In turn, this platform does the underwriting and filtering of the insured object and also pricing, and offers the public to subscribe or invest in the Takaful pool until the requested asset value and the risk has fully been subscribed or covered. This is the idea until now, and until now we don't know or expecting it will be under the investment or insurance or Takaful regulator if it will be applied. This is my general view for that.
Thank you, Adel. I never heard about crowd Takaful. We are running a Sharia-compliant crowd funding platform, equity-based, but
it is not implemented yet. It is just read about it.
And can you tell a little bit more? It's a groundbreaking exercise. So,
crowd Takaful means there is no need to accompany at all. It is a platform where one subscriber for coverage under that platform apply to the platform for people to participate. So there is a subscriber and the participants. The subscriber, like having a risk or an asset under risk for $100 million.
So the subscribers is the one that takes the insurance, right?
Yes, the insured, yes. And the participants who will participate in investing for covering the $100 million risk. And there is, of course, a premiums collected, but as theoretically written for 10 years, mostly not for short time, mostly for a long time, and collecting the premiums for that times. And when the risk happened, of course, there is a loss for the participants. But if it did not happen, so the premium and the investment return will go back as, again, our income to the participants. This is what have been understand from my side about the crowd Takaful.
In Italy, we're working now on a Takaful product for funerals. Is a pent-up demand in Italy or across Europe for Takaful, for funeral Takaful policies with minimal amounts, of course. Do you think it will be possible to marry the two concepts? I mean, crowd Takaful and Takaful policies for funerals?
I can imagine. I cannot judge now.
But
I can imagine if since this is for a long time, it can.
Okay, let's catch up later on.
But because funeral is what we call certain risk, it's certain. There is uncertainty.
No fraud.
No.
It's good because no fraud.
No. But what we spoke about, it is about the risk which may happen or not happen.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
This
you
is
very
the
much.
difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Omar Atteni. Can you tell us about perhaps two questions for you? If you can share a few thoughts about the Takaful industry in your country, Egypt, and then widen up about what is preventing the blossoming of Takaful across the continent.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I believe for Egypt, of course, I was not preparing to talk about the Egyptian Takaful market, but anyway, it's I believe for many of us, it's the first Takaful or Islamic insurance policy was presented in the world, was presented in Egypt, because also the first Islamic bank was established in Egypt. That was 1964. It was a small bank, an initiation of some Islamic scholars and some people who believed in the idea, and they established the bank and they issued the first Islamic insurance policy, but it was not an insurance company. But unfortunately, this experience was not developed Even this bank was just lasted for a few years and closed. After that, Egypt had an Islamic bank, but it was specialized in presenting social support to the population in general, and it was started based on donations and a special scheme, but once again, insurance was not there as Islamic concept till the establishment of the Islamic insurance company in Sudan as the first Islamic insurance company. Unfortunately, in Egypt, the concept itself didn't start up till 2002, when the supervisor at that time decided to accept new applications for new companies, but on one condition, that those new companies has to be different from the old companies. And the people at that time found that the only reason to establish a company, let us make it an Islamic company or a Takaful company. And the first Egyptian insurance company to do Islamic insurance was established in 2002, at the end of 2002, and they started on 2003. And I believe for a while after that, this company a company started to be established as specialized in life or non-life from the beginning. And nowadays we have almost 9 Takaful companies in the country with a market share of about 10%. Of course, as expected, Takaful is the most growing or the fastest growing industry in our segment in the insurance industry in Egypt, but for a known reason. It's a young industry, and as such, the growth rate is expected to be higher than the older companies. But why I mentioned the reason of establishing the first Takaful company, because unfortunately, since start and I believe up to date, the companies couldn't succeed to differentiate themselves from the conventional companies. They are doing almost the same. If you hide the name of the company, if you hide this profit sharing paragraph at the start of the insurance policy, you will never know if the insurance policy is conventional or Takaful. And I believe this is just reflecting the dilemma of the market, and even the dilemma of the Takaful industry in general, when we are trying to discuss what is happening, why we are not growing in the expected base, why we are not now meeting the expectation. I had a few years ago some expectations was expecting Takaful industry to reach $25 billion US, maybe 2015 or even 2017. And nowadays, the expectation is 20 billions by 2020, which means that the market expectation is not as we are looking for. And it is the same challenge in Egypt, that the market is not really, the Takaful or Takaful operators are not really understanding the differences of the Takaful in products and the Takaful approach as compared to the conventional approach. And as such, I believe the market need more focus on that, how to differentiate ourselves of the conventional companies, and how to present new products to our clients to convince them that what we are providing is a really genuine Takaful product, and it requires your trust and confidence. I like it what Omar just mentioned about their experience in Kenya, where the insurers themselves insisted for the Takaful support because they understood the differences between the conventional product and the Takaful product. It may be technically the same product, providing the same cover, but it will never be the same cover for someone who believes that he needs to be aligned with certain ethics or certain principles. I believe this how is the market in Takaful market in Egypt.
Thank you. Thank you. And before opening up to the floor, my question to anybody in the panel: Takaful or micro Takaful products and agricultural development. or cattle management. Anybody has any idea on how we can be implemented in Africa? Omar Sudani.
If you are talking about Omar in Sudan, is the Sudanese Omar?
I will tackle the one of the microinsurance. Actually, a market like Africa, that's a very good product because of the large population and because of the various areas and regions. You know, that kind of lifestyle sometimes dictates those kind of products. And actually, they don't work in isolation. To make them work better, what happens is that these microinsurance products can be linked to other partners like the SACCOs, you know, Takaful SACCOs that provide some little financing to various groups, you know, as little as milk vendors or water vendors and the like. So when we've got these kind of people driving microfinance products, whether they are doing livestock or other microinsurances, when we link them to these groups of people who are doing SACCO in a financial way, it becomes much better, it multiplies, and actually the effect is felt across a very wide region. And therefore, a market like Africa and actually in our country, Kenya, or neighboring countries like Sudan, Tanzania, all those countries, it's a product that can really do very well, and it will really help in the market penetration, also financial inclusion, because the people are really yearning for economic empowerment, and the margin of the two or partnership between the two can actually be the real answer to those.
Thank you. And Omar, please.
I think, first of all, the fallacy in looking at Africa as something different than normal, or Takaful insurance as looking at different than microinsurance in general. I think the basic principles are the same on the same thing. It is, in Africa, when you're talking about things like that, you just have a problem of rating. Credit rating, history, data. How do you collect data? How do you get the information that I can give this person microinsurance? If you find the same models or try to apply the same models you're using in the West, then you have a problem. I think you have to find the foundations. You change the same things. What do you do credit rating? How do we do credit rating in Africa? Africa is a people's continent. We still don't have the data as in, actually now the mobile is changing really, really fast too. That in itself can be a data center. But in trying to use your historical banking, we're not a banking continent. So in the first place, using that. But if I go and ask in the village about the person or certain things, or change our rating system or our credit system of how we collect information or gather, you can actually find the sources to fund the things. But the foundation of how it's going to be operated and collecting the money and getting it has to be on the same level as any banking or anything. It's not different. You just have to find different models for it. Africa is, I think, very rich continent. I think it's a very smart continent in the way that because our leaders are a bit on the, let's leave it like that, I think people are very smart on how to get away from the rules. At the end of the day, we're less than 2% penetration level. Sudan's economy, if I take it, it's almost 85 billion. My estimation for Sudan's economy, it is not less than a $400 billion economy. Most of it is hidden. Most of the people don't go file their taxes. The government is always chasing us to pay our taxes. We think the government's got its own opinion. So again, it's a cat and mouse game. There's the trust factor between the citizen and the person in power is a problem. So tapping into it. The second thing I'd say is that we're the most continent that actually needs insurance. The poorest of the poor are the most people that actually need support and need help. We have to find a solution. Again, I find in Takaful an answer to it. It is just how do we apply it properly on the same conditions that goes as any other company and be able to collect our money. I'm a businessman at the end. It has to be sustainable. It has to be profitable. And it has to give the customer a better, like you said, a value proposition. If I can't give you a better price, then I got to give you a better quality. It's one of the two. But just by putting the word takaful in it, it's an extra advantage. I agree if a Muslim tells me I won't use any other product, it's an extra advantage. But that shouldn't be the reason for him to get that insurance if there is another insurance that's at a lower price or higher quality. Again, taking price or quality as your mainstream thing. The other last thing I'd like to say is that The people who are leaving and coming to Sicily and everything in Africa, the thousands of people, I think that those are some of the best people we have in Africa, actually. These are the people who are not accepting the status quo. These are the people, the disruptors, the people who want change. They're ready to get on a boat and go to Italy or Europe or etc. to change their lifestyle. The problem is those who are still there and are okay with the status quo. Mike Harris was talking about the disruptors, etc. I think technology is coming into Africa like there's no tomorrow. In Kenya, we have M-Pesa, as in financial control. In Sudan, we have change of credit. We do online electricity. Certain things we're skipping the world on because we've been so held back that now that technology is coming, we're coming in faster. And we have, I think, 4 applications of Uber in Sudan right now. Sudanese local versions of Uber. One for women, one for... So things are changing so fast and so things that if the model is right, and again, this is where we go on the model and getting it right, I think it actually can be a solution. And not for Africa, but for the world also, again, changing the perception of insurance people worldwide.
For how long has been Sudan under embargo now?
30
20
years.
more?
29, 30 years, 92. Since 92 is our sanctions?
Which is
Since I opened my eyes, and yeah, we've been under sanctions, but we might actually get off the sanctions next week. No one knows what Trump can do, but we'll see.
My goodness. Adel, you want to share a few final thoughts? Adel?
Concerning the question you asked, yes, we have an experience, but according to my information, especially you spoke about micro Takaful, micro insurance for cattle and agriculture. In Egypt, we have a commercial and there is a governmental fund for to insure the breeders or cattle growing by individual in countryside. This is a fund where the farmer get a loan from the government and the cattle itself is insured. Also, there is another type of cattle insurance concerning the credit. There is a credit life insurance as a top-up on the loan they got. So this is in terms of the micro-insurance in cattle, but we are very behind in agriculture insurance in Egypt. But of course, we know that in Sudan they have a good experience in micro-insurance or in agriculture insurance, I think so also.
Thank you. Thank you, the panelists. Last chance for you guys to ask a question. Please, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can take just 2, 3. Then we go for a coffee break and a social event, social Sharia compliant event.
Thank you. Just a question for Mr. Osman. I was quite interested in your approach to corporate governance and including the policyholders in your boards. What impact has that had on your product offerings? Have they been able to give you advice of more suitability of products for their use? And has it helped you evolve your business mix?
Okay. Firstly, I think he added value. I can't put it on one particular thing as per se. Product development, not really. He didn't add value there. I think as a company, we went through a lot of changes in the past 3 years, specifically. Again, I started with, we really looked at our mission, vision, and objectives. We actually, was the first time we got a policyholder from outside. The committees weren't there. We created those 4 committees, putting them, assigning jobs and responsibilities for them, creating a job responsibility for myself, for my general manager, for everybody, even our chairman, starting from the top down and looking down. The things we're adding value, and I would say, again, the policyholder as per se not there, but again, as a shareholder, and I would say Mohammed Abdin as an executive, together with our policyholders, we created a booklet for our policyholders. Even people in Sudan, they don't know their rights on Takaful insurance, etc. It's almost like going to a banking here. You believe, most people think that it's just window washing, halal washing, almost the difference between interest and charges, the banks call it different names. In Sudan, we have the same feeling. I think we elevated the game by giving away, for example, distributing the surplus. Now I think there's over 50% of the market has started distributing surplus. Because basically it's a marketing tool at the same time. I go to everybody, do you get your money back? No? Well, we give money back. It straight away becomes a marketing thing. I can't pinpoint as a certain thing that he added value. I would say just overall on everything. The other thing, it makes you feel better. As we used to take an investment decision, it was me and the general manager. And right now we had a committee where we're building a new tower in one of the up country in Sudan. And it's over $1 million project. So we had to go to one of the committees for the first time. And we're coming out of the meeting, me and my general manager, we were like, this is pretty good. You know, because at the end of the day, accountability. If the project succeeds, there's no problem. Everybody's going to say you guys did a good job. But the day the project goes down, then they're going to be like, why here or why there? At any time, people can corrupt systems. I can put my investments in a bank that works with me on my personal companies versus others. The policyholder adds that little level of checks and balances. I think the whole idea behind the policyholders is a level of checks and balances. The whole idea is you have to have it between the shareholders, and that's the extra dimension of Takaful that's different than your normal company. The customer sits on that. It's the employees usually and the shareholders who have to make the company successful. You give your staff bonuses, you take the rest of the money of the shareholder. Here we have the third thing, which is the customer becomes an active part and parcel of the product you're producing, not only until the production area, until how the company is producing. Our last policyholder meeting, one of the policyholders actually got up and we're very transparent, handed in all our financial numbers. He said, you guys are doing so well. You have great investments, you have great things, greatest year you ever performed. Distribute 80% of your surplus. Now, this money, whatever they don't distribute, actually comes back into my investment fund. So I do care. But at the end of the day, I let the discussion go ahead because it's the policyholder's money. We really believed in the concept and applied it in our company. What I'm saying, you can believe in it and not do it. It's almost like ISO certification. It's quality. So another customer got up to him and said, but that's not the reason why we got involved in this company. So I would suggest we distribute 40% and the other bit to be put and increase your offices, increase your services, and if you can open at night, we would love that. Now we took those three things straight away, and those became the three things that the policies directed us, actually, our customers directed us, on how to do a better service. I think this year, we're almost on, we passed mid-year, and we almost hit our numbers of last year. Our performance since we started doing our corporate governance, subhanAllah, has just been escalating upwards, whether it's, I think, in shareholder profits, we had our best year. In policyholders distribution, it was our best year. In staff bonuses, it was our best bonus year. So something's working somehow. Expanding it to international areas, to other countries, I think we can work with Omar in Takaful in Africa, Kenya. I think the mobile is the perfect example for Africa. Nobody would have opened the mobile in the 90s in Africa. They said Africans don't have the money for it. Celtel, or Muhammad Ibrahim, or Mo Ibrahim, or the richest Sudanese we have, was the first person who did that with Celtel, which became MTN. And it proved that Africans, if they believe in the product, will pay. Will they have the money to give and to issue payments, etc., if they believe in the thing? Now I think our penetration level of the mobile is over 80% in Africa. I think it's terrible now.
Thank you. And no, we have to close down. And perhaps you can ask a question during the coffee break, please. Thank you, Omar, Tarig, and Adel. And I'll see you all guys tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you very much.